Having fun with hot men is really tasty. Could you tell me which one you thought was the most beautiful? She was the epitome of old Hollywood beauty. Strong, beautiful, and hard to ignore. For many years, Angie Dickinson captivated audiences not only with her acts, but also with a mysterious aura that always seemed to follow her. People couldn't quite figure out what she meant because she didn't follow the rules or let herself be confined. One of them stood out from the others. What was the real story behind the romance that had been talked about for decades? Now at 93, Angie has said something that has made people think about it again. In one phrase, she confirmed what a lot of people thought but were afraid to say out loud. What she said wasn't a press stunt, the start of a memoir, or her last act of fame. It was quiet and personal, but what it meant was very powerful. It wasn't about late-life revelations or job awards. That love wasn't in the news at the time, but it was the most important thing in her private life. One of Angie Dickinson's first roles in Hollywood was in Gun, The Man Down, which came out in 1956. Her story starts on September 30, 1931, in the small North Dakota town of Combe, where she was born as Angeline Brown. In Combe, Dickinson spent her early life away from the busy world of Hollywood. She lived in a quiet rural area. Her early life was shaped by simple surroundings and traditional beliefs as she grew up in the middle of North Dakota. At that time, there was no sign that she would become one of the most known faces in TV and movies. She didn't become a Hollywood actress quickly or in a straight line from being a girl from a small town. Dickinson worked as a secretary before she ever went in front of a camera. This job showed the 1960s expectations of women after World War II. At that point, working in the entertainment business seemed like a far-off dream, especially for people who had no ties to it. But things changed when Dickinson competed in and won a beauty show in the 1950s. This event, which may not seem important, was very important to her future and led to chances in television. Casting directors started to notice her because she was beautiful and seemed confident without being too sure of herself. Because she did well in the pageant, Dickinson started getting small parts on TV, which was the start of her job in show business. When she first appeared on TV in 1954, it was in a business that was just starting to become a major cultural force. The first TV collections came out in the early 1950s. Dickinson started to appear on these shows on a regular basis. They were weekly shows with different plots and casts each week. At the time, westerns and other popular type shows were where she was most often seen. Even though most of her parts were small, they helped her get better at being in front of the camera. Each role helped her feel better about herself and get better at being on TV. She stood out even in minor roles because she could play different roles and give them a strength that people could relate to. Even though she wasn't famous right away in these early years, they were very important in setting the stage for her future success. In 1956, Dickinson continued her steady rise when she got a lot of attention for her part in the Western Gun, The Man Down, which she played opposite James Arnes. Unlike the TV shows she had done before, this movie gave her a bigger stage and people started to pay more attention to her ability. But even though it wasn't a big hit, the movie was a turning point for Dickinson. It marked her move from small parts on TV to bigger roles in movies. Her role in Gun, The Man Down was a big step forward in her career as an actor. In a genre where male stars were usually the norm, it gave her a chance to show a wide range of emotions and a strong screen presence. A great fit for the style and mystery of the movie. Ocean's 11 wasn't just a commercial hit, it was also a turning point in Angie's career because it brought her to the attention of even more people. In this ensemble cast, she stood out and made herself known even among the big stars that were there. The movie helped her become known as a versatile actor who could work in a genre that was mostly male and give it a touch of class that made her stand out. In Ocean's 11, Angie Dickinson proved herself to be one of the best artists of the time. It was clear that she was becoming a star. In the early 1960s, Angie continued to make a name for herself as a talented person in high demand. In 1962, she played the lead part in the psychological thriller Jessica, which gave her a chance to try out a more complicated, dramatic role. The movie which is about anger and obsession, gave Angie a chance to show how versatile she is as an actor. She played Jessica, the title character, a woman who gets caught up in a web of lies and dangerous feelings. The part showed how well she could play a complicated character who was going through a tough mental battle. The gun is a .45 automatic. It was left in this car. Jessica didn't do as well at the box office as some of her other movies, but it showed that she was ready to play roles that were hard for her and let her try out different parts of her acting skills. Jessica was played by Angie Dickinson, who showed that she wasn't just a symbol, but also an actress who could play complex, nuanced parts and captivate audiences with her work. Around the middle of the 1960s, Angie Dickinson was becoming a well-known figure. In 1964, she was in The Killers, a noir-style movie that would become one of her most famous roles. Don Siegel directed the movie, which was based on an Ernest Hemingway short story. Angie played a dark and mysterious part in it. She played Sheila, a female killer who gets caught up in a dangerous plot. Angie showed how well she could play complicated, morally gray characters in The Killers, characters that didn't fit the typical mold of an all-American heroine. As a femme fatale, she had to show that she was both weak and strong, which made her both interesting and dangerous. The movie got good reviews, and Angie's acting was praised for being intense and full. The Killers made her even more famous as one of the best and most versatile actors in Hollywood. Angie Dickinson showed she could do well in a lot of different types of movies during a decade when new movie styles were becoming popular. Angie Dickinson's Hollywood career has long been a fine line between praise and criticism. She has played a variety of roles, from suspenseful crime stories to comedies and dramas, and has done so with ease. Though she has also had to deal with feminist criticism in her role as a feminist icon in Policewoman and Dressed to Kill. Dickinson was known for being beautiful and talented. So many of the parts she was cast in emphasized how attractive she was, often making her acting skills look bad. Feminists were upset about this because they thought she was being used as a symbol instead of being taken seriously as an actor. The fact that her success was shaped by the industry's fixation on female beauty showed how hard it was to be a woman in Hollywood at a time when looks often determined opportunities. Things took a big turn when Dickinson played Officer Billy Pepper Anderson in Policewoman in the 1970s. For the first time, a woman played the lead role in a police procedural, which is usually played by guys. Many people liked how she played a woman who was both strong and in charge, which went against gender norms. But reviewers said the show still relied too much on her beauty and sensuality, which made it less progressive. Feminists said that the way she was portrayed on the show went against the message of equality, making it so that strength and beauty were shown together, but in opposite ways. In the 1980s, Dickinson's part in Dressed to Kill 1980 brought up old arguments about how she was portrayed in the media. In the thriller by Brian Dielma, she played Kate Miller, a woman who gets caught up in a sexual and exciting murder case. Even though the movie did well at the box office and got good reviews for its direction and drama, it was criticized for how it treated its female characters. The famous shower scene became famous, but it also showed how Hollywood likes to mix up a woman's sensitivity with her sexuality. A lot of feminists thought her part was exploitative because her character was more of an object of desire than a totally made-up person. Some people who didn't like Dressed to Kill said that the movie's mix of violence and sexuality was part of a worrying trend in 1980s movies. Even though Dickinson gave a powerful show, some people saw the movie and thought it reinforced damaging stereotypes about characters and victims. People who liked the movie talked about how well it was styled and how it dealt with psychological issues, but the way women were portrayed stayed a sticking point in larger discussions about media responsibility. In this way, Angie Dickinson's impact is marked by two things. She was one of the first actresses to play tough women, but her work was often seen through the lens of religion. Her parts in Policewoman and Dressed to Kill show how Hollywood is still struggling to find the right balance between empowering women and making them into objects. This struggle continues to affect how women are portrayed on screen. Angie Dickinson's TV career reached new heights when she played Sergeant Pepper Anderson in the groundbreaking 1970s police procedural Policewoman. At that time, she was facing feminist critiques of fashion. From 1974 to 1978, it was shown. Not only did the show change Angie's job, it also changed the way TV shows are made. At a time when most cop shows had male stars, Policewoman was the first show to have a female lead. It wasn't just Angie Dickinson playing a tough and skilled police officer on this show. It was about providing women with different stories on TV, especially in crime dramas, which had usually been stories about guys. After Angie played Sergeant Pepper Anderson, women on TV were shown in a different way. She was more than just a friend or a love interest. She was the star because she solved crimes, put herself in danger, and had the strength and drive that men usually have. Many people say that the show's popularity changed how female police officers would be portrayed on TV in the years to come. Not only did her part as Pepper Anderson help break down barriers in TV representation, but it also became a symbol of a new wave of strong, independent women who weren't limited by traditional gender roles. It was said that Policewoman was too controversial, even though it was a new show. Some women agreed that having a female lead in a genre dominated by men was important, but they also said that Angie Dickinson's character was sexualized a lot in the show. Many people didn't agree with this because they thought that even though the show was new for giving women major roles, it still used some of the same old tropes that Hollywood had long used to market female characters. Some feminists didn't like how Sergeant Pepper Anderson was presented because she was both tough and beautiful, and her looks were often emphasized in different scenes. There's no doubt that the show broke new ground in how it portrayed women, but the question arose, was Pepper Anderson a real feminist hero, or was she just another example of a woman being defined by her looks and her ability to be both soft and tough at the same time? In many ways, these criticisms brought to light the bigger problem women face in TV and movie in the 1970s. How to balance showing something that was powerful without giving in to the pressures of beingizing it at the same time. Policewoman had an effect on how women were portrayed on TV that was felt long after the show stopped. What Angie Dickinson's is a strong example of a woman who could lead a show and still be taken seriously in a usually male field. Her performance helped change the role of women in crime dramas. Through many ways, her performance became an example of how female characters could be written into traditionally male parts. It showed that women could do well in these roles without giving up their femininity or being reduced to objects of desire. Angie Dickinson's role as Policewoman showed that a woman could be both beautiful and strong, and the show's popularity cemented her place as one of the most important actors of the 1970s. Angie Dickinson's family sorrow and how the media make news. Angie Dickinson has had a lot of business success, but she has also had a lot of deep personal problems that have often been seen by the public. The terrible death of her daughter Lee Nikki Bacharach was one of the saddest and hardest times in her life. Lee had a lot of problems in her life because she was labeled with autism. Even though Lee's mother tried to give her a loving and caring home life, she had a hard time. And in 2007, she tragically killed herself. It's impossible to imagine how sad it is to lose a child, and for Angie Dickinson, the public and media attention that followed made her sadness even worse. With a thirst for shocking stories, the press jumped on Leia's problems and wrote about them in a way that was both annoying and painful for Dickinson to deal with. Some people might think that the media's interest in Dickinson was just part of being famous, but for her, it made an already very painful situation even worse. Everyone was interested in her because they thought she was having a hard time as a mother and that her daughter's health problems might have affected their family life. The media didn't seem to care about Angie's pain. Instead, they often focused on making her daughter's health problems seem shocking, which made her feel like they were invading her privacy. Later, Dickinson talked about how hard it was for her to raise a child with special needs in interviews, talking about how much pain and stress it caused her. She was honest about how hard it was for her to be with Lee. Seeing both the happiness and the sadness that came with having a child who needed care and help all the time. Even though things were hard, Dickinson said she loved her daughter very much, and the pain of losing her would never go away. When the media talked about the tragedy, They mostly talked about how bad Lee's situation was and often made Angie Dickinson look bad instead of showing sympathy or understanding. The family's personal pain was used by the media as a shocking story for people to read. During this time, Dickinson was being looked at closely for more than just the death of her daughter. It talked about her role as a mother and how she thought she wasn't doing a good job of handling such a tough situation. People then started to criticize Dickinson without cause, as if she had to explain everything about her personal life to everyone. There are times when public figures have to deal with personal problems while being watched by the media. This was unfair, and it was made even worse for Angie Dickinson because she had already lost everything. Along with how people felt about her personal life, Dickinson's work also had its share of problems. On set, she had been called a diva for a long time because people said she was demanding and hard to work with. Others at work and on the set talked about how they thought she was acting, and rumors that she was difficult to please became part of her public image. This revealed the truth about her love affair with JFK. Angie Dickinson, one of Hollywood's most famous people, finally talked about the stories that have been going around about her for decades in a rare and honest moment when she was 93 years old. People in the press talked about a supposed affair between Angie Dickinson and President John F. Kennedy for years, even though she had always been very quiet about it, and in an honest and emotional conversation, Dickinson told them, "The late president really was the love of my life." Many people had long thought what she said was true, but what she said also gave us a much better and more personal look into the life of a woman whose relationships and struggles have been just as important to her as her successful job. Tabloids were always making up stories about Dickinson during her whole career. Because she was so beautiful and talented, the press couldn't stay away from her, and she was often linked emotionally to some of the most powerful and famous men of her time. One story that stuck around for a long time was that she was dating President Kennedy. Even though they were never officially together, rumors about their relationship have been going around for decades, thanks to the fact that they seem to have a lot in common in Dickinson's private thoughts about the time she spent with him. "He was the love of my life," Dickinson said in her interview. This was a new part of her public story and a look into a part of her life that had been kept secret for a long time. But Dickinson's life and work were marked by more than just the alleged affair with Kennedy. In the 1960s and 1970s, she was a Hollywood star, known for her parts in movies like The Killers, 1964, Rio Bravo, 1959, and Ocean's 11, 1960. Dickinson quickly became a symbol, catching the attention of both the public and some of the biggest names in the entertainment business. She was one of the most sought-after actors of her time. Some people liked her looks and charm, which made her famous, but they also said bad things about her. People often saw Dickinson as a Hollywood starlet, but this role came with its own problems. Even though she was clearly a talented actress, she was often cast in parts that focused on how pretty she was instead of how good she was at her job. This got her a lot of criticism, including from feminists who said her parts reinforced old ideas that women are only objects of desire. Policewoman from 1974 to 1978, her groundbreaking work as a female police officer changed how women were shown in the media. In the same way, it caused its own problems. Some women said the show was great because it was so progressive. Others thought Dickinson's version of the character was too perfect, which made her public image more complicated as both a leader for women in law enforcement and a sign of how Hollywood often treats women badly. There were always stories about Dickinson's personal life when she was under so much scrutiny. As her work went on, the media's constant attention on her relationships got stronger. She was linked to a number of famous men, such as John F. Kennedy, Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin. A lot of the time, these rumors got in the way of her work and became part of what people knew about her. Any information about Dickinson's relationships has always been kept secret, but she never denied that she had a strong bond with Kennedy. When she recently said, "He is the love of my life," it showed how complicated their relationship was. It was also a rare look into the emotional side of a woman who had kept her private life out of the public eye for most of her life. Over the years, there has been a lot of talk about Dickinson's connection with Kennedy. Many people have wondered if the rumors of their affair were just made up by tabloids, or if it was something much deeper. Though Dickinson didn't go into details about their time together in the interview, she did say that Kennedy had a unique and lasting effect on her life. She said, "It wasn't just the glamour or the attention that came with being with him. Many people had long thought that their relationship was more than just a one-night stand when she said, it was the connection, the kind of connection that you don't forget." Dickinson said it was a tie that broke her heart and would never be again. Aside from the relationships and rumors of affairs she had, Dickinson's work in Hollywood was full of ups and downs. In her time, she was one of the best actors around. On the other hand, she was constantly criticized for the part she played and the way she looked. Her part in Dress to Kill 1980, a movie that got both good reviews and bad ones, blasted off. How did it get there? The fact that you said there were people everywhere shows how hard it was for her to balance her job with how people saw her. There were sexual and violent scenes in the movie, which caused a lot of discussion about how women are portrayed in movies. Some saw it as a step forward for cinematic expression, while others saw it as an exploitative work. Even though the movie got bad reviews, Dickinson's acting in it was praised by many. However, the controversy surrounding the movie made her relationship with the public and the media even more difficult. In addition to having problems at work, Dickinson also had a lot of problems in her personal life. She had a daughter named Lee Nikki Bacharach in 1966. She was born early and was later labeled with autism. It was hard for Dickinson to deal with the stresses of being famous and having a child with special needs at the same time. She became less public and turned her attention to raising Nikki, giving up her job. As she learned how to be a mother, her life was full of both happiness and sadness. Dickinson was badly hurt when Nikki killed herself at age 40 in 2007, which was a terrible loss. In the years that followed, she was open about how painful it was to lose her daughter and how hard it was to raise a child with autism at a time when the foundation didn't have as many resources or as much support.